Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Death Row History Channel. I am your host, Mr. Toad, and here with me, if you can't see, I have a co-star. No clue what I'm gonna name this cat, but it wanted to film with me tonight, so you're gonna see a little black shadow behind my ear, and that's about it. Tonight, I decided to do a quick video. You know, we talked about the New York Death Commission, and I finished that series. And I was doing research on another topic, and I come across a list that I just couldn't pass up. This falls perfectly into line with the focus of this channel being the history of the death penalty. And, well, this list is the top 10 most gruesome methods of execution that have ever been used. So, for those with weak constitutions, I again say, watch this in segments or don't watch, because this is not a video for the faint of heart. Number 10, the Brazing Bull. The Brazing Bull was invented by Paracelsus of Athens in the 6th century BC, and it was a large brass bull that was completely hollow inside, with a door on the side large enough for a man to enter. Once the man was inside, they would light a fire under the bull and roast him. Yeah, that's about all you can say on that. Number 9, hanging, drawing, and quartering. Now, we know what hanging is. Hanging is the popular method of execution. You know, you get hung from the neck, you know. We know what that is. It says here that the first stage of the execution was to be tied to a wooden frame and dragged behind a horse to the place of death. Following that, the criminal would be hanged until they were nearly dead. The criminal would then be removed from the noose and laid on a table. The executioner would then disembowel and emasculate the victims and burn the entrails in front of his eyes. He would still be alive at this point. The person would then be beheaded and their body cut into quarters. I guess that's one way to deter crime, but I personally don't see the point in going to that extreme. What about you? Do you see the point in it? Apparently the cat doesn't either. Number 8, burning at the stake. I really shouldn't have to cover this one, because if you know American history, Salem witch trials and all that, but okay, burning at the stake is essentially what it says. They would tie a person to a piece of wood, or actually it says here the victim would be led to the center of a wall of sticks and straw and tied to the stake, at which the space between the criminal and the wall would be filled with wood and concealing the person, and yeah, they would light them on fire. Number 7, Ling Chi, or the Chinese method of slow cutting. This was practiced in China until it was outlawed in 1905. In the execution, the criminal is slowly cut in the arms and legs and chest until finally they are beheaded or stabbed in the heart. Many Western accounts of this method are largely exaggerated, with some claiming that the execution could take days to perform. One modern eyewitness reported, "The criminal is fastened to a rough cross, and the executioner, armed with a sharp knife, begins by grasping handfuls of the flesh from the fleshy parts of the body, such as the thighs and breasts, slicing them off. And removes the joints and the excrescences of the body one by one." Yeah. Number 6, breaking at the wheel, or breaking the breaking wheel is what it's called. Ironically enough, the person, if you're broken at the wheel, you do not die from the getting your limbs broken. You die from the shock to the body and dehydration. But we all pretty much know what breaking at the wheel is. They would attach, the criminal would be attached to a cart wheel. That is the wheel of a cart, not the exercise. And his arms and legs stretched out along the spokes. The wheel would be made to turn while a heavy metal bar or hammer would deliver bone-breaking blows to various points on the body between the spokes. Okay. Enough on that one. Number 5. If you watched my videos on the New York Death Commission, then you know a little bit about this one. Boiling. Everybody's favorite method. Personally, not mine. What about you? I'll take that as a no. Okay, so in this method, the condemned is stripped naked and placed in a vat of boiling liquid or in a vat of cold liquid, which is then heated to boiling. The liquid could be oil, acid, tar, water, or molten lead. This leads back to King Henry VIII. This punishment was actually reserved for poisoners. So if you poisoned someone, you boiled. Well, at least they knew that. Number 4 is flaying. Which, again, if you watched my video on the New York Death Commission, you know what flaying is. Flaying, or as we call it, filleting, is skinning alive, pretty much. Sound fun? Apparently my partner in this video doesn't think that one's a good idea either. Okay, number 3. Now. Number 3 is an interesting punishment. Primarily because I've never heard of it before. And that the fact that they used it as recently as the 90s really says something. Number 3 is necklacing. Necklacing is a method of execution in which a rubber tire is filled with gasoline and forced over the arms and chest of a victim and set alight. This was common in South Africa in the 80s and 90s during the anti-apartheid struggle. Necklacing sentences were sometimes handed down against alleged criminals by people's courts established in black townships as a means of circumventing the apartheid judicial system. Okay. There's more to that, but that's pretty much all of it. Number 2, Sacfism. Sacfism is an ancient Persian method of execution. A naked person would be firmly fastened to the back within a back-to-back pair of narrow rowboats, or in variations, a hollowed-out tree trunk, the head, the hands, and the feet protruding from this improvised contraption, the condemned would then be forced to ingest milk and honey to the point of developing severe diarrhea. The more honey would be rubbed on rubbed on his body, so to attract insects to the exposed appendages. The defenseless individuals, your excrement would be accumulated within the container, attracting more insects, which would, Jesus Christ. Okay, so essentially, they would feed you milk and honey until you got diarrhea, and you would be in this contraption, and then they would soak your appendages in honey, causing more insects to come and eat you and breed in your wounds. And so death would eventually happen, but it would come by a combination of dehydration, starvation, and septic shock. Not a way I want to go. What about you, my furry friend? Number 1, sawing. In execution, an execution by sawing, the criminal would be hung upside down, and a large saw would be used to cut the body in half, starting at the groin, all the way up to the head. Because the person was hanging upside down, the brain received sufficient blood to keep them alive until the saw finally reached the main blood vessel in the abdomen. In the Asian version of this execution, the victim would stand upright and the sawing would begin at the top of the head. Some traditions state that the prophet Isaiah was executed by the saw, and it was believed that St. Paul, making reference to this in his... So, sawing is a biblical method of execution, and that is the list. 10 methods that are bizarre, to say the least. None of which would be one I personally would be comfortable using, nor would my partner here. As you can see, the damn cat's asleep. But it is what it is. This is what happens when you have kittens. I decided to take one of my kittens and spend some time with it. Maybe tame it down a little bit so that it's more handleable, so that it's more manageable and tamer than its brothers and sisters. But who knows? Anyway, folks, have a nice night. This is Mr. Toad with the Death Row History Channel saying, again, remember, if you have any questions regarding the death penalty or the history of the death penalty, feel free to comment down below, and I will get to them in time. So, again, have a nice night, everybody. I'm gone.